Senator Inhofe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to cover three things that I don't believe have been covered. First of all, and I think it's appropriate, even though it's not within the scope of specifically what we're supposed to be talking about here, but Senator Lugar said something about the ability that we have. I don't think we can isolate and leave out of this discussion what is happening to our capability militarily. We've seen several articles recently, and one as recent as Monday in the Wall Street Journal, in terms of the attention that we're paying to the defense of this country, that throughout the 20th century, we've spent about average 5.7% of our gross domestic product on defense. During peacetime, during wartime, 13.3% on defense. It has been, prior to this last budget, under 3% of our gross domestic product. I think this is a very critical thing, and I believe that it was in one of the early hearings that we had in this administration, Secretary Rumsfeld said we're going to have to face it and get it up to or exceed 4% of our gross domestic product. I'd like to have each one of you just kind of respond to that and see if you have any thoughts on
that. You're not going to get a strong argument from me. We're getting substantial increases in resources thanks to the budget increases that the President approved actually prior to September 11th.
Except the current budget is really only at 3.1%, and I'd like to kind of look into.
I think the other point I'd make, Senator, is we need to make truly efficient use of what we have, and it's not simply a matter of, though it's not a trivial matter, to make good use of the taxpayers' dollars, but I think sometimes we find that we need structures that are quicker and more agile and communicate with one another better, and sometimes that's a smaller, leaner structure rather than a bigger one.
Okay, let me get to point two. I think I would agree with that. There seems to be an attitude here, or several public statements have been made that talk about this administration and the mess that we got. You know, I always think of the two skeletons in the closet, and one rattled to the other one, how do we get in here? And the other one said, if we had any guts, we'd get out. Well, I think we have an administration now that has the guts to get out. I'm a little disturbed, though. The first thing that happened during the past administration, take the energy labs, for example, they did away with color-coded ID badges. They did away with wire checks or background checks and reinstated some people who had already been shown to have leaks. And I think that I remember going through what I call the hand-wringing phase of Osama bin Laden, starting with the World Trade Center and with the actually taking credit for the first Yemen threat that was out there, Somalia, then of course Tanzania and Yemen. All this happened, and then you guys came in office. Now, I think you said, Secretary Armitage, that by the time you got your national security team in place and were able to do something, it was your first meeting was in March?
April, sir.
In April. So, and then this comes along just a few months later, and I would just ask you the question for a real brief answer as to what do you think you really had time to do in terms of getting a real handle on all the access to the information that was there and getting it properly interpreted to your satisfaction?
I'm not sure how to satisfactorily answer for you, Senator Inhofe. I know that within a month, we felt that we had enough information to decide that we had to aggressively go after al-Qaeda, and that was within a month. I mean, we learned a lot more as we moved on down the path, but that was a decision of April 30th. I'd been in office 5 weeks, and Paul about 7.
I think in your testimony, Secretary Wolfowitz, the key paragraph, and I'm going to repeat it again here to make sure everyone heard it, the President has made it clear we will not wait until it's too late, and that the one option we don't have is doing nothing. We cannot afford to wait, as the Secretary put it so well, until we have a smoking gun, for a gun smokes after it's been fired. I see the hand-wringing now coming from this side of the table as opposed to the administration, quite frankly. Because when we talk about all the things that have to be done and all the things that have to be in place, I'm hoping that you folks realize that, and you do realize, and the whole country needs to realize, that you have the authority in the event the President sees imminent danger to an American city to go ahead and take the necessary action. That doesn't require a response. Lastly, my predecessor, David Boren, was the chairman of the Senate Select Intelligence Committee. He and I talked in 1994 when I took his place and he became president of Oklahoma University about the problems that we have in our intelligence community talking to each other. We're talking about NSA, and, you know, it's kind of a turf battle that's going on. In terms of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, which I strongly support, recognizing this doesn't take all of the intelligence community into effect, only the DOD portion of it, do you think this is going to go a long ways into ending the turf battle in our intelligence system?
I hope it goes a long way toward dealing with turf battles within that large chunk of the intelligence system that's in the Department of Defense. By the way, I think turf battles is yes, they're turf battles. We're all aware of them. There are also legitimate reasons why one agency is concerned about overly wide dissemination of information. These problems don't arise just because people are defending turf. But I think within that large area that is under the Secretary of Defense's purview, I think this will go a long way. It's not a magic cure. There is no single magic cure, but it will be a major step forward. And I thank you for supporting it.
Thank you.
May I take advantage
Yeah,
of your initial question, Senator, to make a point? Any support for the defense budget is welcome. I think it should be welcomed by every citizen. I'll just make the point that the Department of State's budget is 1/10 of 1%. 1/10 of 1%.
Well, I only mention that because I chaired the Senate Armed Services Committee on Readiness, and we're to the point now where when you look at readiness, modernization, national missile defense, all of these things that we have to do, there's no longer one area that you can rob money of. We're going to have to do something about the bottom line, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.